Imagine this. You open Instagram for a few minutes before going to sleep. Within seconds, you see your college friend posting photos from a rooftop bar in Miami. You scroll again. Your coworker is smiling next to a brand new Tesla. Scroll one more time. Your neighbor just posted pictures of their newly renovated kitchen with marble countertops and expensive appliances. And suddenly, a thought appears in your mind. How is everyone affording this? Because at the same time, you're standing in the grocery store checking your bank balance before deciding what you can buy. My name is Bryony, and I spend way much time thinking about why people who look financially reckless are sometimes better prepared for disaster than people who did everything right. If you've ever felt vaguely unsettled about how dependent your entire financial life is on one company, subscribe and hit. Maybe you've skipped ordering food because you weren't sure how much money you had left. Maybe you've wondered if you're the only person still worried about money. It starts to feel like everyone else has figured something out that you haven't. Everyone else seems to be upgrading their life. Better houses, better cars, better vacations. Meanwhile, you're trying to stay responsible with your finances. But here's the truth that rarely gets discussed. A huge portion of the lifestyle you see around you isn't built on wealth. It's built on debt, pressure, and carefully selected moments. And once you understand the numbers behind modern lifestyles, you might realize something surprising. You might actually be doing better than you think. Let's start with something simple. Drive through almost any suburban neighborhood in the United States. You'll see beautiful houses, manicured lawns, and expensive cars parked in the driveway. From the outside, everything looks like success. It feels like the people living there must be financially secure. But here's what most people never consider. Many of those homes are financed almost entirely with borrowed money. According to recent housing data, the median home price in the United States is around $400,000. Traditionally, home buyers were expected to put down 20% when purchasing a home. That would require an $80,000 down payment. But most people don't have that kind of money saved. So instead, many buyers put down 3 to 5%, sometimes even less. That means they're borrowing almost the entire price of the home. Now let's look at the monthly cost. At mortgage interest rates around 7%, a $400,000 loan can easily lead to a monthly payment of about $2,600. But that's only the base mortgage. You still have to add property taxes. You still have to add home insurance. You still have to budget for maintenance. When everything is included, the real cost can easily reach $3,000 per month or more. Now compare that to income. The median full-time salary in the United States is roughly $60,000 per year. That equals about $5,000 per month before taxes. So if someone is spending $3,000 per month on housing, more than half of their income is already gone. Financial experts usually recommend keeping housing costs below 30% of income, but many households today are spending 50 to 60%. This creates a situation economists call being house poor. From the outside, the house looks impressive, but inside the budget, almost every dollar is already committed. There's very little room for savings, very little margin for emergencies, and very little financial flexibility. But none of that is visible to the outside world. All people see is the house, and the illusion continues. Now let's talk about what's parked in the driveway. Cars have become one of the biggest symbols of financial success. A new car suggests someone is doing well in life, but the numbers behind car ownership tell a different story.
The average new car payment in the United States is now over $700 per month. For SUVs and trucks, which dominate American roads, the payment is often closer to $900 or even $1,000 per month. And something else has changed. Loan lengths have become much longer. Years ago, most car loans lasted about 4 or 5 years. Today, 6-year and 7-year loans are extremely common. Some lenders even offer 8-year financing. Why? Because stretching the loan makes the monthly payment look smaller, but it also means people stay in debt for much longer. Let's say someone finances a $50,000 SUV. With current interest rates, that payment could easily be around $900 per month. But that's not the full cost. Insurance might add another $200 monthly, gas might add another $200 depending on commuting distance, maintenance and registration add even more. Suddenly, the real cost of owning that vehicle can reach $1,300 per month. For someone earning $60,000 per year, that's more than a quarter of their income going toward transportation. Now combine that with housing costs. A $3,000 mortgage, a $1,300 car expense. That's already $4,300 per month. And remember, the monthly income before taxes was about $5,000. That leaves very little money for food, utilities, savings, or retirement. But from the outside, nobody sees this math. They only see the car. Here's something important to understand. Most people don't wake up one day and decide to overspend. It usually happens slowly. A slightly nicer apartment, a slightly nicer phone, a slightly nicer car. Each decision feels reasonable on its own, but together they create a lifestyle that requires a very high income just to maintain. Economists call this lifestyle inflation. As income increases, spending increases as well. Instead of gaining financial freedom, people simply upgrade their expenses. And once someone becomes used to a certain lifestyle, it becomes very difficult to reduce spending later. This creates a cycle. Higher income leads to higher expenses lead to financial pressure, and financial pressure often leads to more debt. Debt is one of the biggest hidden forces behind modern lifestyles. Credit cards, personal loans, and financing options allow people to spend money they don't currently have. And from the outside, it's impossible to tell the difference between someone who paid cash and someone who used credit. A vacation looks the same, a new phone looks the same, designer clothes look the same, but the financial reality behind those purchases can be completely different. Credit cards are especially dangerous. Many cards charge interest rates above 20%. That means balances can grow quickly if they aren't paid off. But again, nobody sees that part. They only see the lifestyle. Social media amplifies this illusion. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok are designed to highlight the most exciting moments of life: vacations, luxury purchases, celebrations, achievements. But they rarely show the ordinary days or the financial stress behind those moments. Your brain collects these highlights from hundreds of different people and combines them into one mental picture. It starts to feel like everyone around you is constantly upgrading their life, even though you're actually seeing isolated moments from many different lives. This creates a distorted perception of what normal life looks like. And once that perception changes, people start feeling pressure to keep up, even when it's financially unhealthy. Once you understand how these systems work, something interesting happens. You begin to notice the difference between appearance and reality. Many people who look wealthy are actually carrying large amounts of debt. Many financial decisions are driven by social pressure rather than logic. And most importantly, building real financial security often looks boring from the outside. But boring can be powerful, because while flashy lifestyles burn money quickly, quiet financial discipline compounds over time. And that difference becomes enormous in the long run.
Now here's where things start to get really interesting. Because once you look past houses, cars, and vacations, you eventually arrive at a much more important number: net worth. Net worth is the total value of everything someone owns minus everything they owe. It includes savings, investments, retirement accounts, and property. But it subtracts debt, like mortgages, car loans, and credit cards. In other words, net worth shows the real financial position someone is in, not the lifestyle they appear to have. And when you start looking at the real data on net worth in the United States, the picture becomes very different from what social media suggests. According to Federal Reserve surveys, the median net worth for Americans under 35 is roughly $39,000. That might sound like a decent amount at first, but remember, this number includes everything: savings accounts, retirement accounts, investments, home equity, everything combined. Which means many people in this age group have very little actual liquid money available. Now let's move up to the next age group. For Americans between 35 and 44, the median net worth is about $135,000. Again, that sounds better, but there's something important hidden inside that number. For homeowners, a large portion of that wealth exists as home equity, and home equity is not cash you can easily spend. You can only access it by selling your house or borrowing against it. So while the number may look impressive on paper, the actual financial flexibility many households have is much smaller than it appears. Even people in their prime earning years, between 45 and 54, have a median net worth of about $247,000.
When you compare those numbers to the luxury lifestyles we often see online, something doesn't add up. Half of the population has less wealth than these amounts, which means the lifestyles we see on social media are often not representative of the average financial reality. There's another factor that plays a huge role in how people afford their lifestyles, and it's something that rarely gets discussed publicly: family support. In recent years, surveys have shown that a large percentage of parents continue providing financial help to their adult children. Sometimes that help comes in small ways: paying for phone bills, helping with car insurance, covering occasional expenses. Other times, the help is much larger: helping with rent, helping with the down payment, helping with student loans. In some cases, parents even provide direct monthly support. And when that support exists, it dramatically changes someone's financial situation. Imagine two people who both earn $60,000 per year. The first person pays their own rent, groceries, utilities, and insurance. The second person receives help from family, covering some of those expenses. Even though their salaries are identical, their financial lives will look completely different. The second person may appear to be living a much more comfortable lifestyle, but that comfort might not come from higher income. It might come from lower expenses thanks to family assistance. And from the outside, there's no way to tell the difference. Social media rarely shows the financial support behind the scenes. You see the apartment, you see the car, you see the vacation, but you don't see the help that made those things possible.
Another major trend shaping modern finances is something that has increased dramatically over the past decade. More young adults are living with their parents longer. Rising housing costs have made independent living much more expensive than it used to be. As a result, millions of people in their 20s and early 30s now live at home while working full-time jobs. This situation changes the financial equation completely. Housing is usually the largest expense in anyone's budget. Remove that expense, and suddenly a large portion of income becomes available for other things. Someone earning $45,000 per year while living at home might have significantly more spending money than someone earning $70,000 while paying rent, which means the person with a lower income might actually appear to live a more luxurious lifestyle. Again, from the outside, this difference is invisible. All you see is the lifestyle. You don't see the financial structure behind it. Another reason lifestyles can appear misleading is something economists sometimes refer to as hidden or invisible income. This includes money that doesn't appear in someone's primary salary. For example, side hustles, freelancing, small online businesses, gig work, selling products online. Today, millions of people generate additional income outside their main job. Sometimes that extra income adds a few $100s per month. Sometimes it adds several thousand. But most people don't talk about it publicly. If someone earns $60,000 from their main job and another $2,000 per month from freelance work, their real income is much higher than their job title suggests. Yet observers might only see the job, which creates confusion when their lifestyle seems more expensive than their salary would normally support. There's also another subtle factor that distorts perception: timing. Social media compresses time in a very strange way. You might see someone post a new car in January, a vacation in March, a home renovation in July. When those moments appear in your feed, they look like a constant stream of expensive upgrades. But in reality, those events might have been spaced out over years. The car might have been purchased after months of saving. The vacation might have been funded with travel rewards. The renovation might have been a small project stretched over several months. But when these moments are condensed into a highlight reel, it creates the impression of constant luxury, which makes viewers feel like they're falling behind, even when they're not. Once you start understanding these hidden factors, something important happens. You begin to realize that financial appearances can be extremely misleading. The lifestyle you see might be supported by debt, or family assistance, or hidden income, or simply selective timing, but none of those factors are visible on the surface. And that's why comparisons based on appearance can be so dangerous, because you're comparing your entire financial reality to someone else's highlight reel. You know your stress, your bills, your savings, your responsibilities, but you only see the best moments of someone else's life, and that comparison is fundamentally unfair.
So the real question isn't whether other people appear wealthier than you. The real question is much simpler. Are you improving your financial position over time? Because real financial progress doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, through small decisions repeated consistently. Saving a little more, spending a little less, investing a little earlier, avoiding unnecessary debt. These actions might not look impressive in the moment, but over time, they create something much more valuable than appearances. They create stability, and stability is the foundation of real wealth. At this point, we've talked about the numbers. We've talked about debt, family support, and the hidden factors behind modern lifestyles. But there's another piece of the puzzle that might be even more powerful than money itself: human psychology. Because the way we perceive other people's lives can dramatically influence how we feel about our own finances. And in many cases, the pressure people feel about money doesn't come from their actual financial situation. It comes from comparison. Human beings are naturally wired to compare themselves to others. This behavior has existed for thousands of years. In early human societies, comparing yourself to others helped determine your position within the group. It helped people understand where they stood socially, who had more resources, who had more influence, who had more status. But in the modern world, this instinct operates in a completely different environment. Instead of comparing ourselves to a small group of neighbors or coworkers, we now compare ourselves to thousands of people online. And many of those comparisons are completely unrealistic. You might compare your financial progress to someone who inherited money, or someone who lives in a completely different cost of living environment, or someone who simply presents a very curated version of their life online. But your brain doesn't naturally adjust for those differences. It just registers the comparison. And that comparison often leads to one emotional conclusion: I'm behind. There's a psychological concept known as the relative income effect. It suggests that people don't evaluate their financial situation based purely on how much money they have. Instead, they evaluate it based on how much money they appear to have compared to others. For example, imagine two different scenarios. In the first scenario, you earn $70,000 per year while most of your friends earn $50,000. In the second scenario, you earn $120,000 per year, but most of your friends earn $200,000. Even though your income is higher in the second scenario, you might actually feel less successful because the people around you appear to be doing better. Your perception of financial success shifts depending on the environment you're in. And social media amplifies this effect dramatically. Instead of comparing yourself to people with similar lifestyles, you're constantly exposed to the most successful, most exciting, and most luxurious moments from thousands of different lives, which creates a distorted baseline for what normal life looks like. Here's another surprising reality. Many high-income earners still feel financially stressed. In fact, surveys show that a significant number of households earning over $150,000 per year report feeling financially insecure. At first, that might sound impossible. How can someone earning that much money still feel broke? But once you understand the concept of lifestyle inflation, the answer becomes clearer. When income increases, many people upgrade their lifestyle to match. A bigger house, a nicer neighborhood, private schools, luxury cars, more expensive vacations. Each upgrade increases ongoing expenses. And before long, even a large income can start to feel tight. If someone earning $150,000 per year is spending $140,000 annually on their lifestyle, they may still feel constant financial pressure, not because they lack income, but because their expenses expanded to consume most of it. This is why income alone does not determine financial security. What matters much more is the gap between income and spending. Another reason financial comparison can be misleading is that success often looks very different from the outside than it does from the inside. Someone might appear extremely successful because of their job title, house, or car, but their financial reality could be very fragile. They might be carrying large amounts of debt. They might be living paycheck to paycheck. They might have very little savings. But because the outward signals of success are visible, people assume their financial situation must be strong.
Meanwhile, someone else living a simpler lifestyle might actually have substantial savings and investments, but because those assets aren't visible, their financial success goes unnoticed. In other words, visible signals often highlight spending, not wealth. True wealth is often quiet. It exists in bank accounts, retirement funds, and long-term investments, things that rarely appear on social media. Once comparison begins influencing financial decisions, it can create a powerful loop. People feel pressure to match the lifestyles they see around them, so they spend more money to keep up. That spending increases their financial obligations, which increases their need for higher income, which increases their stress, and the cycle continues. Over time, this pressure can push people into financial choices that don't align with their long-term goals, buying things primarily because they signal success to others, instead of because they improve long-term financial stability. So how do you escape this trap? The first step is recognizing that most financial comparisons are incomplete. You never see the full picture of someone else's finances. You don't see their debts. You don't see their stress. You don't see the trade-offs they're making behind the scenes. You're only seeing selected pieces of information. Once you understand that, comparisons become less meaningful because the data you're comparing simply isn't reliable. The second step is shifting the focus of comparison. Instead of comparing yourself to other people, compare yourself to your past self. Are you saving more than you did last year? Are you reducing debt? Are you investing more consistently? Those comparisons are much more useful because they track real progress, and real progress is what eventually leads to financial freedom. The truth about wealth is that it usually grows slowly. It's rarely built through sudden upgrades in lifestyle. Instead, it grows through consistent habits over long periods of time, saving regularly, investing consistently, avoiding unnecessary debt, allowing compound growth to do its work. From the outside, this process can look boring. There are no flashy upgrades, no dramatic lifestyle changes, but over time, something powerful happens. Small financial advantages begin to compound, savings grow, investments grow, financial pressure decreases, and eventually, stability replaces stress, which leads us to the final and most important question. If chasing appearances doesn't build real wealth, what actually does?
So, after everything we've discussed, a very important question remains. If expensive lifestyles don't necessarily mean someone is wealthy, and if social media creates a distorted picture of financial success, then what actually builds real financial security? The answer might sound surprisingly simple, and maybe even a little boring. But over long periods of time, boring financial habits are usually the ones that create the most powerful results. One of the biggest misconceptions about wealth is that it should look impressive. People often imagine wealthy individuals constantly upgrading their lifestyle. Bigger homes, more luxury, more visible signs of success. But in reality, many financially secure people live surprisingly ordinary lives. Instead of spending most of their income, they focus on something much less visible: ownership. Ownership of investments. Ownership of assets. Ownership of things that produce income or grow in value over time. Stocks, businesses, real estate, retirement funds. These assets don't always look exciting on the surface, but they create something extremely powerful. They allow money to grow. Earlier, we talked about income, but income alone doesn't determine financial success. What matters more is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. This gap is what creates the ability to save and invest. And over time, that gap becomes one of the most powerful financial tools a person can have. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine two people who both earn $80,000 per year. Person A spends $75,000 every year. Person B spends $55,000. Even though their income is identical, their financial futures will look completely different. Person B has $20,000 per year available to save and invest. If that money is invested consistently over many years, it can grow dramatically through compound growth. Meanwhile, Person A may appear to have the more luxurious lifestyle today, but their financial flexibility in the future will likely be much smaller. This is why the gap between income and spending matters so much, because that gap is what funds the future. One of the most powerful forces in finance is something called compound growth. Compound growth happens when investments generate returns, and those returns are reinvested to generate even more returns. Over time, this creates exponential growth. At first, the progress can feel slow. In the early years, investment balances grow gradually. But as time passes, the growth begins accelerating. Money starts earning money, and then that money begins earning even more money. For example, someone who invests $500 per month into a diversified investment portfolio, earning an average annual return of 7%, could accumulate over $600,000 in about 30 years. Increase the monthly investment to $1,000, and the final amount could exceed $1.2 million. What makes this powerful is that it doesn't require extraordinary income. It simply requires consistency and time. The challenge is that compound growth rewards patience, and patience is something modern culture often struggles with. We live in a world where results are expected quickly: fast delivery, instant entertainment, immediate feedback. But financial growth operates on a completely different timeline. It rewards long-term thinking, years of steady investing, years of disciplined spending, years of letting money compound quietly in the background. That process doesn't produce dramatic results overnight, but over decades, it can transform someone's financial future.
Another important shift happens when people begin thinking about money differently. Instead of using money primarily to signal success to others, they begin using it to create freedom. Freedom from constant financial stress, freedom to handle unexpected emergencies, freedom to make career decisions based on interest rather than necessity, freedom to take time off when needed. In other words, money becomes a tool for stability rather than a tool for comparison, and that shift in mindset changes many financial decisions. Instead of asking, "Will this impress people?" the question becomes, "Will this improve my long-term financial stability?" That single change in perspective can have a powerful impact on spending behavior. People who consistently save and invest often develop something that isn't immediately visible: financial resilience. When unexpected challenges appear, medical expenses, job loss, economic downturns, they have resources available to handle those situations. This resilience reduces stress, it creates confidence, and it provides options that others might not have. While someone focused entirely on appearances may look successful today, their financial situation could be extremely fragile. Meanwhile, someone quietly building savings and investments may appear ordinary, but their long-term security is far stronger. At the end of the day, financial progress isn't really about comparing lifestyles. It's about moving gradually towards stability and independence. Instead of measuring success based on visible purchases, it can be helpful to measure progress using different questions. Are you saving more than you did last year? Are you reducing debt? Are you investing consistently? Are you building a financial safety net? Those markers of progress might not generate social media attention, but they create something far more valuable: peace of mind. So the next time you scroll through social media and see expensive vacations, luxury cars, or large homes, remember something important. You're only seeing the surface. You're seeing a small piece of someone's life. You're not seeing their debts. You're not seeing their financial stress. You're not seeing the full picture. And because of that, comparisons based on appearances are rarely accurate. Real financial progress often happens quietly, through small decisions repeated over many years: saving consistently, investing patiently, avoiding unnecessary debt. Those habits may not look impressive in the moment, but over time they can create something incredibly powerful: a life where money becomes a source of stability rather than pressure. And in the long run, that kind of success is much more